Once completed our interdisciplinary project and reflected on what we've learned, the next step is to test the more comprehensive understanding we've developed. This is a formal and structured process, distinct from reflection, even though it may involve elements of self-evaluation. Testing in interdisciplinary research looks different from disciplinary testing. In a single discipline, testing typically involves applying that field's preferred methods to its preferred forms of data. But as Repko and Szostak explain, interdisciplinary researchers can't rely on just one method. Our understanding spans multiple fields, so our testing needs to be multifaceted as well. To do this, we use a strategy called triangulation, drawing on multiple types of evaluation to reduce bias and to increase confidence in the results. This gives us a more well-rounded sense of whether our integrated understanding holds up. There are 4 ways to test an interdisciplinary understanding, and they fall into 2 broad categories. 3 of the tests focus on the results of the integration and ask these questions. 1. Was the outcome useful? For example, does it offer viable policy implications? 2. Does the outcome represent an improvement over existing disciplinary explanations? 3. Does it add something original to the conversation? Perhaps a new insight, framework, or approach? The 4th test shifts the focus to the process and asks, was the integration done appropriately? Were insights selected and combined using a clear and rigorous method? Together, these tests help us evaluate what we produced and how we produced it. Testing is essential because interdisciplinary work often challenges conventional wisdom. It pushes boundaries. So we need to be sure that our conclusions are not only innovative, but also well-founded and justifiable. In short, testing is the final academic check before we move on to communicating our results to others. It confirms that the understanding we've built is valid, credible, and ready to enter broader scholarly and public conversations. The Newell Test is one of the most widely used methods for evaluating the quality of an interdisciplinary understanding. It focuses on 2 things: utility and process. Let's start with utility. Newell asks us to evaluate whether the final understanding we've developed is useful, not just intellectually interesting, but actionable. In other words, does it help solve a real-world problem? Does it answer the research question in a way that's meaningful? Can it inform public policy, guide practitioners, or support decision-making in the real world? This is an important standard for interdisciplinary research, which often targets complex, applied problems. If your conclusion doesn't seem useful to anyone, if it lacks practical value, Newell suggests you may need to revisit your integration or your disciplinary sources. But Newell also emphasizes how you arrived at your understanding. Was the process rigorous? Did you perform each step thoughtfully and thoroughly? A common failure is to move too quickly from disciplinary insights to integration without clearly identifying the connections between them. You must be able to show how the insights relate, how the variables, concepts, or frameworks interact to form a cohesive whole. In short, the Newell Test challenges us to consider whether the final understanding is useful and whether the integration was done in a careful, systematic way. If you can confidently answer yes to both, you're likely on the right track. The Tress brings our attention to a critical, but sometimes overlooked, part of the interdisciplinary research process: communication. According to Tress and colleagues, an understanding doesn't truly become research until it's communicated, until it moves from tacit knowledge that lives inside your head to explicit knowledge that others can access, critique, and build upon. This transformation happens when your work is written, published, presented, or shared with a broader academic or professional audience. One of the most important questions this test asks is, have you made your integrated understanding visible and available to others? Tress and colleagues emphasize that your findings only become research when you take the final step of organizing, analyzing, and sharing that knowledge in a way that others, especially those in the scientific and academic communities, can evaluate and respond to. They also encourage us to ask, is this work interesting and relevant to others in the field? Will other scholars, practitioners, or decision-makers want to engage with it? Have I communicated my findings in a way that allows others to use or build upon them? This means your research needs to be accessible, whether that's through a journal article, a policy brief, a documentary, or even a well-designed website. The medium doesn't matter as much as the message being clear, coherent, and available. So, the Tress test reminds us that interdisciplinary research only reaches its full potential when it contributes to broader knowledge creation, and that contribution begins with thoughtful, intentional communication. The Szostak Test is one of the most thoughtful and flexible methods for evaluating an interdisciplinary understanding. It consists of 2 parts, a basic test for all types of projects, and a more advanced, holistic version for policy-oriented research. Let's start with the basic test, which asks 2 key questions. 1. Is the new understanding better than no understanding at all? This is a foundational question. Even if your integrated insight is imperfect, is it still an improvement over having no synthesis or explanation? What does it add? 2. Does it offer a superior explanation compared to disciplinary alternatives? This is the more advanced question. Critically compare your interdisciplinary understanding to individual disciplinary perspectives. Ask yourself, does my explanation clarify causal relationships better? Does it draw on broader evidence or offer more actionable insight? If your integrated understanding improves on these areas, you've passed this part of the test. Now let's move to Szostak's holistic test, which is useful for policy-focused projects. It asks a deeper set of questions to ensure that your understanding is not only clear and integrative, but also responsible and well contextualized. Here are the 4 holistic questions. 1. Does the analysis acknowledge possible negative side effects of implementing the understanding? Think about unintended consequences. What could go wrong if your insight were applied? 2. Does the analysis account for the full range of causal relationships? Have you considered all the important variables, systems, and stakeholders involved? 3. Is the understanding adequately contextualized? That means, is it grounded in the cultural, historical, institutional, or ecological realities that shape the problem? And 4. Would policymakers find it useful? If the audience includes decision-makers, is your work accessible, relevant, and applicable to their needs? This holistic version of the Szostak test is especially valuable when you're working on real-world problems, where the stakes are high and oversimplification can be dangerous. To summarize, the basic Szostak test helps you measure the strength and originality of your understanding. The holistic test goes a step further to ensure it's responsible, complete, and practically useful. Together, they help interdisciplinary researchers hold their work to a high standard of intellectual and ethical rigor. The Mansilla test provides a structured way to evaluate interdisciplinary work, especially in academic settings. It's built around a rubric that identifies 4 defining qualities of high-quality interdisciplinary understanding. Whether you're evaluating your own project or an instructor is grading student work, This rubric offers clear and meaningful standards. Let's break down the 4 core criteria. 1. Purposefulness. This refers to the clarity of the project's goals and audience. A purposeful interdisciplinary project should do 3 things. First, clearly define the problem in a way that invites multiple disciplinary perspectives. Second, offer a strong rationale for taking an interdisciplinary approach. This links to steps 1 and 2 of the research process. And third, use an appropriate genre or communication strategy for its intended audience, whether that's policymakers, educators, or the general public. So ask yourself, does my framing of the problem naturally require interdisciplinary insight? Have I clearly communicated the purpose of my project to my intended audience? The second criteria is disciplinary grounding. This refers to your ability to work accurately and thoughtfully within the disciplines you draw from. This is linked to steps 3, 4, and 5. Strong disciplinary grounding does these 2 things. First, effectively uses of each discipline's concepts, methods, and communication style. Second, provides a clear understanding of how those disciplinary insights were selected and applied. So ask yourself, did I use disciplinary theories, findings, or examples accurately? Did I apply each discipline's preferred methods appropriately? Methods like data analysis, philosophical reasoning, or textual interpretation. The third criteria is integration. This is at the heart of interdisciplinary research, and it's what sets your work apart. Integration means identifying where insights from different disciplines overlap, contrast, or complement each other, and creating something new from that combination. This aligns with steps 8, 9, and 10. Boix Mansilla's rubric recommends asking these 4 questions. First, did I bring in relevant insights from at least 2 disciplines? Second, did I use a strategy to connect those insights, like a model, metaphor, or visual framework? Third, is there balance in how I treat the disciplines, so one doesn't dominate or distort the others? And fourth, did integration lead to a new, more advanced understanding? The fourth and final criteria is critical awareness. The project should reflect a deep, thoughtful awareness of its own strengths and limitations. Strong interdisciplinary thinkers can weigh disciplinary options carefully, adjust their integration strategy when needed, and recognize where their understanding is incomplete or where more research is needed. So ask yourself, am I aware of the limits of the disciplines I used? Have I explained how and why I combined them the way I did? To summarize, the Boix-Mansilla rubric isn't just about getting a grade. It's a powerful tool for self-evaluation. If your project scores well across all 4 areas, purposefulness, disciplinary grounding, integration, and critical awareness, then you've achieved something truly valuable. By now, we've reviewed 4 rigorous ways to test an interdisciplinary understanding: the Newell Test, the Tress test, the Szostak Test, and the Boix-Mansilla rubric. But testing isn't about finding the right method. Instead, it's about using multiple tests in combination to make sure your final product is strong, credible, and complete. To do that, you'll want to consider these 7 key indicators of quality, drawn from across all 4 testing approaches. 1. Usefulness. Ask yourself, does this understanding help solve a real-world problem? If your work has value for practitioners, policymakers, or the public, that's a strong sign of its utility. 2. Disciplinary grounding. Have you achieved adequacy in each of the disciplines you used? Have you clearly identified how those disciplines connect to each other and to the overall understanding? 3. Integration. Does your project synthesize different perspectives? Are you clearly showing how those viewpoints were combined and why the combination led to a better understanding? 4. Process clarity. Have you explained how the project unfolded? This includes what went well, what steps were challenging or skipped, and how you adjusted your approach along the way. 5. Comparison. Can you show that your interdisciplinary insight is better than any single disciplinary alternative? This might include offering a broader explanation, resolving contradictions, or identifying patterns others missed. 6. Self-reflection. Do you show awareness of your project's limits? Have you acknowledged where disciplinary gaps, time constraints, or bias may have shaped the final product? 7. Communication. Have you shared your work in a way that invites peer feedback? Knowledge becomes research when it's made public and evaluated. That means clearly presenting your results, whether in writing, speaking, or media, and inviting others to respond. To summarize, testing your interdisciplinary understanding isn't about passing a checklist. It's about raising the quality of your work. These 7 indicators help ensure that what you've created is more than just a project. It's a meaningful contribution to solving a complex problem.